relax, get comfortable, and let this tale about paying it forward guide you off to dreamland. Long ago, in a village nestled between the high mountains and a vast forest, lived a young boy named Leaf. Leaf was an ordinary boy with a heart as pure as the mountain springs, and though he had little to call his own, he always found ways to bring joy to others. Leaf lived in a small, worn-down cottage with his grandmother. She was wise and loving, but had grown frail with age, so Leaf took on many of the responsibilities, like gathering firewood, tending to their small garden, and helping neighbors when they needed an extra hand. One day, as the sun began to set and painted the sky with hues of pink and gold, Leaf ventured deep into the forest in search of wood for their hearth. The air was crisp, and the trees towered over him, their branches whispering ancient stories. As Leaf walked, a strange shimmer caught his eye. There, amidst the fallen leaves, lay a golden feather, so radiant it seemed to glow with its own light. Leaf knelt down, picked up the feather, and held it gently in his hand. It was unlike anything he had ever seen, soft as the finest silk, yet warm to the touch. As he admired the feather, a soft voice echoed through the forest, startling him. "Thank you for finding my feather," said the voice. Leaf looked around, but saw no one. "Who's there?" he called out. From the shadows of the trees emerged a majestic bird with feathers as brilliant as the sun itself. It was the phoenix, a legendary creature known in tales for its immortality and power of renewal. Its eyes glowed with warmth and wisdom as it approached the boy. "I am the phoenix," it said softly. "The feather you found is one of mine. I shed it as a gift to the forest, and those with kind hearts often find it. You, Leaf, have proven your kindness time and again, and so I grant you a gift in return." Leaf was speechless. The phoenix continued, "This feather holds great magic. If you give it to someone in need, it will grant them their heart's true desire. But be warned, the feather's magic only works if it is given with pure intent, expecting nothing in return." With that, the phoenix bowed its head and flew back into the depths of the forest, disappearing into the twilight. Leaf stared at the golden feather, realizing the responsibility that now rested in his hands. As he made his way back to the village, he thought about how best to use the feather's magic. The first person he thought of was old Johann, the village blacksmith. Johann had once been the strongest man in the village, but an accident had left his leg injured, and he could no longer work as he used to. His forge had grown cold, and his once thriving business had all but dried up. Leaf often helped Johann by fetching water or running errands, but he knew the old man longed to return to his work. The next morning, Leaf visited Johann's house. "Johann," he said, "I have something for you." Leaf handed the golden feather to the blacksmith, who looked at it with awe. "What is this, boy?" Johann asked, his voice gruff, but curious. "It's a gift," Leaf replied. "I found it in the forest. It's said to have the power to grant your heart's desire. I want you to have it." Johann's eyes widened, and though he was a man of few words, his gratitude was evident. He accepted the feather with a nod. That night, Johann held the feather close, thinking of the life he once had, wishing with all his heart for the strength to work the forge again. The next day, something incredible happened. Johann awoke to find that his leg had healed. He stood, walked without pain, and soon enough, his forge roared to life once more. The village was abuzz with the news, and Johann, forever grateful to Leaf, shared his renewed fortune with the village by crafting tools and goods for those in need. Leif was happy for Johann, but felt a curious emptiness where the feather had once been. He realized that though the feather had done good, it was not something to keep. Its true power lay in giving. Days passed, and Leif returned to his usual routine. One afternoon, while helping his grandmother in the garden, he heard a familiar whisper in the wind. The phoenix appeared before him once more. "You did well, Leif," said the phoenix, "and because you gave without expecting anything in return, I grant you another feather." Sure enough, in his hand was another shimmering golden feather. Leif was stunned but grateful. He knew what he had to do. This time, Leif thought of Amara, the baker's daughter. Amara was a kind girl with a voice like honey, but her father had fallen on hard times. Their bakery, once the heart of the village, struggled as fewer people could afford to buy bread. Leif often saw Amara singing quietly to herself as she worked, her songs filled with a longing for something more. Leif brought the feather to her, explaining its magic. Amara, though reluctant to accept such a gift, eventually held the feather and closed her eyes, wishing with all her heart for her family's bakery to thrive once more. The next morning, the scent of freshly baked bread filled the village square. People flocked to the bakery, drawn not only by the delicious aroma, but by a new kind of bread that Amara had dreamed up, a recipe passed down through generations. The bakery became busier than ever, and Amara's family was lifted from their hardships. As for Leif, he felt a deep sense of joy watching others prosper. But just like before, the phoenix returned, offering yet another feather as a reward for Leif's selflessness. And so it went. Leif continued to give the feathers to those in need, to the widow who had lost her farm, to the young couple wishing for a child, to the traveler who longed to return home. Each time, the feather brought about a small miracle, but only because Leif gave it freely, without any desire for reward. One day, however, a stranger arrived in the village. He was a rich merchant, draped in fine clothes and jewels, but his eyes were cold and calculating. He had heard of the boy with the magic feather and sought to claim one for himself. The merchant approached Leif, offering him riches in exchange for a feather. "Think of all you could have, boy," the merchant said, showing off his gold coins and treasures. "I can make you the wealthiest person in the land." But Leif shook his head. "The feathers are not for sale. They are meant to help those who truly need them." The merchant sneered and left, but Leif did not waver. He knew that the magic of the feather could not be bought or sold. It was only powerful when shared with a pure heart. Many years passed, and Leif continued to help others. The village grew prosperous, not because of the magic feathers, but because people learned from Leif's example. They began helping each other, paying forward the kindness they had received. One day, as Leif sat by his grandmother's side, now an old man himself, the phoenix appeared for one last time. "You have done more good than I could have ever imagined," said the phoenix. "Your kindness has spread like a flame, touching every corner of your village and beyond. As a reward, I offer you one final gift. What is your heart's desire, Leif?" Leif thought for a moment, but he could not think of anything he wanted for himself. Instead, he said, "I wish for the village to always remember the power of kindness, and to never stop helping one another." The phoenix smiled. "That wish, my dear Leif, has already come true." And with that, the phoenix soared into the sky, leaving behind a trail of golden light. Leif watched as the bird disappeared over the horizon, his heart full and content. From that day forward, the village became known far and wide as the Village of Kindness. Travelers would come from distant lands to learn of its secret, and they would always leave with the same answer. True magic is not in what we receive, but in what we give. And so, the legacy of Leaf and the Golden Feathers lived on, a testament to the power of paying it forward.